You're writing your script and you want to have a character use their iPhone or find some information on Facebook or drive a Porsche or listen to an oldie but a goodie. That's the sound of the men working on the chain gang. But you're not sure if you can include real stuff in your screenplay. Probably because you've heard random people or read in a book that you shouldn't include real things in your screenplay. Now, there's a short answer to this question, but there are 4 things that you need to consider along the way. And not taking these 4 things into consideration might get your script kicked if you're submitting to production companies. So the short answer, you can totally include real stuff in your screenplay. 100% you can do this. No one's coming after you. And if you're submitting your script for a contest, unless that contest has specific rules about your script's budget, you don't have to worry about putting real stuff in your script. Knock yourself out. But if you are submitting your script to production companies because you're trying to get that sucker sold, okay, that's where the considerations come into play. So you've got some real stuff in your screenplay. Are you infringing on anyone else's copyright by including their real product in your script? Well, no. I mean, if you're including real stuff in your screenplay, you are not infringing on anyone else's rights. And one reason is because a screenplay is not a finished product. A screenplay is a blueprint for a film. It's not a film. The film is the finished product. But even then, there's a lot of gray area. And if your script gets sold, your script is gonna get reviewed for any legal entanglements. And at that point, yeah, you might have to rewrite or revise some of it. If you're going the independent route though, you might want to consult with an entertainment lawyer just to make sure you're okay. But you can 100% include anything you want in your screenplay. An iPhone, Facebook, a Porsche, even an oldie but a goodie. All day long, they work so hard till the sun's going down. It does get tricky when you are using elements that are in and of themselves protected by copyright, and music is a big one here. And that's why I'm singing and not playing the song. I mean, this is my version. The original is protected by copyright, and YouTube doesn't like it when you include copyrighted stuff because songs are finished products protected by copyright. At the same time, when you include real life things, some of those may not necessarily be protected by copyright, but they might be trademarked, like company names or logos. And when it comes time for the movie, yes, some of that stuff gets changed for legal reasons. But to be clear, that is not your concern. Your concern is to craft a well-told story. You are writing a screenplay that's meant to be read and hopefully sold, not a script to be made. And having a character in your story check Facebook instead of face mash is just better, because face mash is dumb. Facebook sounds authentic and won't kick your reader out of the story like if they read face mash like that would. So the first consideration you must realize when it comes to including real stuff in your script is you have to craft a solid story and tell it well. That is your goal. So use the best thing you can to do that. If it's an iPhone, use an iPhone. But someone will kick my script if I use a real thing. But that's when the second consideration comes into play. Real things can negatively impact budget. So if you're planning to have 10 Lamborghinis race down the highway and then there's a big pileup and 8 of them are just destroyed, okay, but you're trying to write a small budget movie, yeah, you just blew the budget there, Skippy. Renting exotic cars is one thing. And if you have a main character driving a Lambo and that makes great story sense, then do it. But crashing a bunch of exotic cars just because you can, yeah, that's probably going to be a budget problem. So you must be aware of how your real things are impacting the budget. But then you think, oh, I know, I'll just be generic. She drives a sports car. He pulls out his cell phone. And at times this option works just fine, but not every time. And this is consideration number 3. Specificity wins. Now, if you have a character driving a sports car, okay, that only tells me that the character is rich or acts entitled or just wanted some fun in their otherwise boring life. But if that same character isn't driving just a sports car, but they're driving a vintage black Porsche 944, okay, that's a whole other level of character. And this one is way more interesting because of the specificity. Specificity wins. Now, you don't want to overdo it. You know, you only need to be specific on the things that matter for the character. So you don't go write a character description where you're naming the brand for every article of clothing along with the type of hair gel making the character's hair stand up. Only the real stuff that matters for character development, that's what you should be including. So be specific in your writing and use real stuff when appropriate, because real stuff makes for better stories. So of the 4 considerations we've noted, your first priority is to craft a solid story and tell it well, so include real stuff to do that. 2, be aware that real stuff impacts the budget. So if you're writing to budget, you have to pay attention. And 3, specificity wins. Including real things in your script helps make the elements feel authentic. And if the real thing is something that better reveals character, you should probably include it. Now, the 4th consideration is not hitting the buttons below if you're finding value, but that does make YouTube happier and more willing to push this video to others who may be interested, and that's really, really helpful. So any interaction you have is greatly appreciated. And if you're so inclined, you can even support me on Patreon. And as always, if you want my help writing your next screenplay, be sure to check out the links below in the description. Those links are real opportunities, and real people just like you have made tremendous progress toward their screenwriting goals. And those real people are including real stuff in their screenplays, which makes their stories better. But there's one more critical consideration that you have to realize. Familiarity is better than nuanced. The perfect song is only perfect in your script if it 1, enhances your story, and 2, is recognizable by the reader. So you found that perfect song for your story? That's great, but it's not a popular song. I know you love it. I know it speaks to you, and it totally encapsulates the moment that you're wanting to convey. But referencing that song in your script causes the reader to be pulled from the story. They're no longer concerned anymore about what happens in the story because they're trying to place the song you just mentioned, which makes it seem really important because you mentioned it, but they've never heard of it. And this can happen with props and costumes as well. So you're describing an 18th century outfit and mention that one of your female characters is wearing a commode. No, not the commode that gave her a swirly, the commode that made her hair resemble a small tower because it's a wire frame to make a woman's hair literally tower on their head. So why are you using unfamiliar things in your screenplay? I mean, I get it. It makes the story authentic because you're trying to put in real stuff, but you have to remember that familiarity is better than nuanced, because you're writing a story that's meant to be read, and the reader must be able to understand your story and not get pulled out of it trying to remember the tune of a song or because they have no idea what a commode is. So yeah, you can use real stuff in your script, craft a solid story and tell it well. Specificity wins. It's usually a good call to include real things, and familiar stuff is better than nuanced real stuff. And last, real things do impact the budget. So if you're writing for a contest, okay, who cares? Put it in. But if you're trying to keep your script under a certain budget to appeal to a low budget film producer, be aware of how expensive the real stuff you include actually is. And you might be asking, but Jake, I don't know what makes things expensive in my script. I don't know how to budget a film. No worries. I got you, because it can be a critical mistake not knowing how your story is impacting the potential budget. And if you want a shot at getting your stuff on the big screen, you have to know how to work within budgets. And you can learn more about that by watching this. Please don't forget about all the fun buttons and links below, and when you go to tell a story, use real stuff as much as it makes sense for your story and tell a story that matters. See you later.